Thrasher and Pipeman on W4CY Radio.
Wake up, America! It's time for the adventures of Pipeman on W4CY.com, West Palm Beach's #1 internet radio station. Here's your host, the Pipeman.
This is the Pipeman here on the Adventures of Pipeman W4CY Radio, and I'm here with our next guest who has some badass music that we're going to share here. So let's welcome to the show, Opium Death. How are you?
Good. And yourself?
How you doing?
I'm doing great. I do have to say right off the bat, I don't normally say anything about a band's name, but I think of Opium Death, and I don't think of fast metal when I think of that. I think of like something very different. So people have to listen to your music opposed to just assuming like people do nowadays, because once they do, they are going to hear some badass, fast, heavy metal. That's like a cool combo of thrash and death.
Yeah, it's essentially where our influences lie. So yeah, we've never gotten that sort of compliment or really comparison with our name before. It's always like, I'm always one to just kind of laugh before I know. Whenever people ask me like, "Oh, you're in a band, what's the name?" I'm like, well, get ready for this.
So go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say is that it's just great that we get that kind of reaction too, because again, Opium Death wasn't technically the original name, but I'm just glad with name change that we solidified and committed with. It's getting eyebrow raises, and then when you hear the music, see us live, I think it just adds an extra punch, So
no doubt, and I gotta say, in the best possible way, I like this name much better.
Thank you.
And see, I'm old school because I basically I was in the whole metal scene when thrash first started and death first started and all that. Like I went to one of the first Possess shows ever. I went to the first Slayer show ever, first Metallica show ever. And now I'm really, really pumped up because, I go on tour and I do festivals. And two of the festivals that I go and do radio coverage at, they announced the reunion of Slayer today.
Yeah, I saw that.
Right? Oh my God. Like it was cool enough. Kerry King came out with his stuff and it's pretty badass, and he was going to play at festivals. And then it's pretty funny. I was just reading the other day that him and Tom haven't talked since the last show, and now they're going to be playing. It's pretty wild to have.
That's what I was thinking too. I mean, as you said, Kerry announced his solo stuff like 2 weeks ago or something like that,
right?
Basically borderline almost slanders Tom, saying like, I haven't talked to him since 2019. And then there was another headline saying, I played all the bass on the Slayer records. It's just like, okay, we're never seeing these guys again. Like a week later, they're back.
I know. That's why it just totally blew my mind. Part of me likes to say, that was all part of it to make the surprise, and I don't even say that in a bad way, because I'm the type, when I pull off a surprise, I'll try to get myself, I don't care if I get myself in trouble as long as I pull off the surprise, and that definitely, like, even me who gets the inside information usually, like I promote these festivals. So they're like, here's what's going on, but you can't say anything.
Oh, wow.
I had no clue. Like,
wow.
I knew when everybody else knew. It was perfectly executed, and it's pretty wild. And now they need to put you guys on the bill, because I mean, you guys could really, like, it should be like Slayer's headline one night and you headline the other night.
Oh, that'd be sick.
That would be crazy.
I'd love to.
Right?
Do that.
Right?
Ride Riot Fest has been pretty cool with adding some, metal each year. We went to the one Riot Fest where it was Slayer's last time in Chicago, and that was just stacked full of thrash bands. So,
yeah, I was at that one. And then, one thing I dig about Riot Fest is they always come out with this like out of nowhere, like out of left field thing. Like when the original Misfits twice they did that, and now it's Slayer. And then Slayer's going to be playing at Louder Than Life. And
that's right.
The funniest part about that Louder Than Life, which I do that every year. Okay. Motley Crue's headline one night, Slayer's headline another night. The first band I ever saw in a club was at the Roxy on the Sunset Strip. And it was Motley Crue before they had an album, when they were still like horror punk, before they turned all wussy. And then I got into Slayer, and all my friends were like, you got to burn all your Motley Crue shit. You can't listen to Slayer and listen to Motley Crue
at the same time.
And then now they're both headlining one festival. It's kind of funny to me.
The growth is crazy. When you start tell a story like that, when you hear stories like that, there's a whole history with just where they started, all these iconic albums that came out at the time, and then now headlining festivals. It's just wow.
Oh yeah. Listen, the first time I went to see Slayer, it was because I went to Oz Records in the Valley and used to get this thing called BAM Magazine, and that's where you saw all the gigs, and you couldn't listen to music like you could now and know what they sound like. You went to gigs, they looked fucking cool. Okay. And so I saw this picture of Slayer and I was like, oh, they look evil as hell. I'm going to that, because they had like the thick, dark black eyeliner before they went to the Bay Area. Like when they went to the Bay Area, bands like Exodus and Possessed and all them all made fun of them and said, you got to take that shit off. We don't wear makeup up here.
Wow. That's interesting.
And they weren't wearing like glam makeup. They were wearing like evil, and so there's the death metal connection too, because Slayer was almost like an anomaly. They were like death metal, black metal, thrash metal, and punk all combined.
Yeah, a healthy mix. Just a dose of liver, everything, and then they combined it all, and that's what you get. That's them.
No doubt.
There's a reason why a lot of those classic death metal bands from the 80s and 90s always cite Slayer as a massive influence of theirs. A lot of that old school death metal is just doing what Slayer did, but faster, meaner, more aggressive,
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And I think what happened with death metal too, which is really cool, which I find in your music now, is as it's evolved through the years, it's become more musicianship and technical, opposed to something that was just like, and that was what defined death metal. It was like just really fast and you didn't understand what they were saying unless you understood.
Yeah, unless you were them.
Exactly. So, but nowadays, and I see it in your music here, is like, man, it's just such supreme musicianship. I mean, I'm always in awe. Like I listened to your stuff and I was like, I can never play that fast and that good. It's like, it's one thing to play good. It's another thing to play fast and good. To me, that takes serious talent to make it not just noise, but actual musicianship. And I think that's what you guys do.
No,
yeah, we appreciate the words too.
It's something I like to like pass along all the members, is that I want to give us a standard in performance, but we want also have fun with it. So I think that's where like the being good and then fast, we want to be balanced on all levels, because then if you're too technical, then the sort of the music taste, the sort of like melodies, they might like dissipate, they come not as musical, I guess, because there's just too fast, there's too much going on. But if you have good, then it's like, okay, there's, I feel like maybe I heard that melody before. So it's always kind of digging through our minds and trying to like, okay, what's it that we want to do and let's execute it. So
I also like to put it like waves. It's like it should be like waves instead of just all at you.
Right. Yeah. It's also like, I feel like with our music as well, we don't really get into like too technical of ranges where like if you go to see us live, you're there to move. We all move around pretty much, we're not just standing there focusing on what we have to play, like a lot of tech death bands do, which, no disrespect to tech death at all. I love a lot of those bands. It's just, I always thought for us, like we need to have that sort of like, we want to move around on stage. We want people to move around and not just like admire what we're doing. Oh. So,
I love you saying that because it's a big thing with me. Like I've gone to thousands of live shows, and sometimes we also talk about it backstage, all the press people, and there's like certain bands that we're like, yeah, we're not even going to go out there and see them. And we may like the band a lot, but if you're playing live, you can't just sit there and not move and stare at everything you're doing, opposed to like what you're saying, moving around, making it a show. So yeah, there has to be that even keel between the musicianship, but also putting on the live show. Like, I don't care how good the band is. If the guy's sitting there looking at his guitar the whole time to make sure he hits every note right, I don't want to see that. I'll just listen to it.
Yeah, that's fair. No, valid point.
So kudos to you for like bringing that up, because yeah, you got to get out there and just blow people's minds. And usually the blowing people's minds is from being active and moving around and putting on that live show. I can't tell you how many bands that I didn't really like when I listened to them, and then I went to a live show and they became like one of my favorite bands.
That's literally how I got into Cannibal Corpse. For the life of me, they were one of the few death metal bands, and it's like it's almost a cardinal sin to not like them, but it's just
right.
Listen to them on record. It's just like I get why they're famous. I get the appeal, but for some reason, it's just not clicking. And then I finally went to go see them live, and I was like, I get it. I completely get it now. This is
right.
Why people love them.
I love too is like, okay, when you see him backstage right before they're about to get on stage, he's like wetting down his hair so he could perfect the whipping and around.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I saw that, I was like, oh shit, look at that. He's preparing for the headbang. So tell us, the listeners don't know you guys, how would you as an artist describe your music? Forget genres for a second, because I hate artists being locked into a genre, and we've talked about genre a little bit. I want to hear what you guys are thinking when you're making your music.
I would describe it ourselves as like a brutal concoction of extreme music.
I love that,
because we're loud. We like to play fast, but not always fast. I think like the music when we're in the room, especially when we're songwriting, there's this sense of intensity they want to bring along because we just have that passion, for that type of style of music. And so I think for us, it's just go all out, but be a little fancy here and there. But this is who we are. We just love that dynamic, So
yeah, totally. I love it. And go ahead. You were going to say something too?
No, it's just that and just concoction, because we just like to mix other things into it. We don't want to be just one trick pony. I just like to blend. It's like, hey, I think this can work into this song. Let's bring it in, mix it up, and kind of like cooks in the chef.
Yeah,
cooks in the kitchen. So
So you guys have had, you've had multiple lineup changes, and do you think that's what's really happened? Is like that those lineup changes are contributing to the evolving of the band, where there's different influences coming in? Because I find that with a lot of bands nowadays that I do like is that everybody in the band has some different influences, opposed to like, everybody being on the, and this is what you find a lot in death metal and black metal. Everybody's like exactly the same. And I think that going back to Slayer, that's what made Slayer is like Jeff and Dave were punks. Kerry was a metalhead, and Tom wasn't even a metalhead when he first got into Slayer.
Right. Yeah.
So, and like you have all these influences that come in that make a unique sound that people know it's you.
Yeah, it's exactly you pretty much hit the nail on the head with a lot of our lineup changes. You know, a lot of, you know, it's mainly been on the guitar aspect. You know, it's always been, you know, me, Irvin, and then Don, our bassist / vocalist, you know, have been kind of the three key members since around 2016. When we recorded this record, we had our other guitar player, his name was Will, and he brought in a lot of our, like, if you listen to the record, there's a few songs that sound very like black metal-ish, not true cult or not complete black metal, but you hear a lot of the influence, and it was all thanks to him. And with the new guy we got now, or new quote unquote, he's been in the band for like what, a year and a half or something like that. Yeah. He brings a lot of old school death metal to the table with, you know, we've already written a couple of songs with him and they're very like OSDM sounding. So, I mean, yeah, having a lot of these, you know, a lot of different influences come into our music, you know, does come from a lot of the members, you know, like, you know, Irvin is pretty into like progressive metal, whether it be tech death, progressive death metal, or just regular progressive music. You know, he'll add that into the songs, you know, like Dead Weight on the records are all written by him. It's our most techie song on there. I've been in like this extreme metal rabbit hole since like 2018. I got super into Cattle Decapitation and I was already into them, but like seeing them live, I was like, all right, cool. I'm going down this rabbit hole. So I got into bands like them, got really into Nile, Aborted, like all these different extreme metal bands. And that's what helped my playing as well. I'm learning how to do those kind of blast beats and whatnot. And then Don, our vocalist, is kind of like Tom, not that much of a metalhead, but he brings a lot of interesting stuff to the table when it comes to his different influences as well. So yeah, you know, you pretty much hit it right on the head. You know, different members have brought in different, you know, pieces, and yeah, I mean, exactly.
I think it's more important nowadays than ever because, you know, back in the day, there were very few bands, but now you have all these bands and a lot of them will sound exactly the same because they're using this like formula of what death metal is supposed to be, what black metal is supposed to be, what this is supposed to be. I'd rather, you know, to me, metal's always been experimentation, you know, and not this is what it has to be.
Right.
Now, I do have to say that I'm very excited because your debut album is dropping on April 19th, which also happens to be my oldest daughter's birthday. So there you go. So it's a perfect day for that album to drop.
The best present she'll get.
Exactly.
The best present she'll get. No doubt about it.
100%. What would you guys want to say to the listeners of that would entice them to pick up that album, you know, and what you think would be, if you were them, what would sell you on going and getting the album?
Let's see.
I almost say the album cover itself. I mean, look at it.
I know it's pretty badass, right?
Yeah. The album cover alone should be enough for a lot of people to be like, what the hell is this? And then pick it up and listen to it. But honestly, my sort of sales pitch for this record is if you like almost any type of metal, definitely, or yeah, really any type of metal, mainly any type of, you know, more harder metal, definitely pick it up, because we're not just limiting ourselves to an influences of like just Cannibal Corpse or just Cattle Decapitation. Right. You know, we have influences from a whole array of different bands, from, you know, the two that I just listed, and then there's also a bit of Nile, Gojira, Death, you know, Obituary, you know, there's a bunch of different bands. So there's really sounds on there that everyone will like, essentially.
It's always refreshing, you know, because there's always in the area, there could be like a oversaturation of a certain style. But I was like, oh, you know, this record, Green, Man on the Syringe, corporate, I hate corporate, I'll pick it up. So I think
I'm big about album covers, so I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's how I grew up in metal. Like, if the album looked cool, the cover looked cool, I bought it and didn't even know what it sounded like. And I would buy this one for sure, just by the look of it. I'd be like, oh shit, I gotta get that album.
Great to hear.
So go ahead, sorry.
I was like, no, it's like great to hear that it has that kind of effect on you and hopefully everyone else.
Yeah, because, you know, it's kind of making a comeback. It's been for a while where a lot of these kids, they don't even know what albums look like the cover. They don't care. They're just on this track thing. But I think it's making a big difference now. I think the album covers, the days of artwork on there being important are back. And I think it's becoming more important. And I think it is, because music is a full sensory experience. Like, it's not just the music, it's everything that goes along with it, which also goes to what I was saying about a live show. You know, I think a metal live show should be brutal. And I think you guys, as the artists, after playing for whatever it is, 45 an hour, 90 minutes, should be drenched in sweat because of that.
Absolutely.
It's more like after the first song for me. So
right there you go. You know, just like being in the pit. You know, if I'm sweating, you're sweating.
Yeah, there you go.
So how do people to connect to you guys on socials, on the web, get the album, anything else you want to tell them to connect with you or check out dates and all that good stuff?
We are on pretty much all socials, you know, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it.
I hate calling it X.
Yeah. I'll dead name Twitter. It's fine. But yeah, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you know, just look for Opium Death. You'll find us there.
Bandcamp is where you can also pre-order the album. So
nice.
We haven't announced it yet, but we are working on making physical copies as well. And it's really just CDs. So we'll have hopefully a CD pre-order up sometime sooner or later, as well as maybe some new merch. That's all sort of TBA. Yeah. But yeah, all socials and YouTube, and just, you know, just with YouTube, look up Opium Death Official if that'll help. But there's not really a whole lot of bands called Opium Death. So I think we should be the only one. So
yeah. How lucky are you guys, man? Because I think about that too. Like, it's so hard to come up with band names nowadays. That's why all these bands use like symbols and all kinds of other crap, because like it seems like every name is taken. And this one is like such a cool name. How was it not taken?
Right.
Do you guys have any final words you want to share with the listeners that they need to know, or anything you want to share with them?
Just look out for us, you know, just the name Opium Death is something you guys are never going to forget. When you do see us live, it's also something, a band that you're never going to forget. We are committed to the craft. We are, you know, willing to provide the best brutal music that we can ever offer.
Expect greatness on this record. Expect greatness on the next EP we're working on. We do have a show for anyone who may be listening in the Chicago area. We are playing Reggie's on, what was that, March 29th. I almost said 19th. March 29th, we're opening up for a band called Nixil.
Yeah, Nixil.
Like more of a black metal band. We got the opening slot. They're touring around the country right now, or will be sooner. Yeah. So yeah, just keep an eye out for us as well. We do plan on taking this outside of the Chicago area too. You know, we're hoping to kind of branch into more Midwestern states, whether it be Indiana, Wisconsin, Missouri, you know, Minnesota even. So yeah, just keep an eye out for our name, and if you see it, definitely come out to a show. You will not be disappointed at all.
Absolutely.
Nice. Love it. You guys rock, and thanks for the great music, and thanks for being on the Adventures of Pipeman.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for listening to the Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY Radio.